What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today we're doing our week 7 power rankings, and there's actually a lot of movement toward the top of the list. Usually it's kind of toward the bottom with some teams that were doing pretty bad finally getting a win and kind of shifting things. But honestly, from last week to this week, the bottom 8-ish haven't changed a whole lot, but like the top 8 and like even, honestly top 16, there's actually been a lot of movement in there. So we're just gonna jump right into it because, like I said, the bottom 8 are pretty much the same, and coming in last is the Panthers, of course. They're just like still winless heading to their bye week. They're now gonna give the play calling duties to their offensive coordinator. Maybe that helps the offense. At a certain point, though, you have to just realize they don't have the weapons around Bryce Young this year. It's just not going to happen. So, they can still finish the year strong, maybe make it respectable looking. But, as far as even breaking top 25 this year, I'm not going to think that's the case. So, they're coming to number 32, the same as last week. And then also the same as last week is the Broncos coming at number 31. Again, Broncos are just not that good, and that's just kind of how it is all these teams at the bottom. Like, we're at the point in the year where you can kind of tell which teams are good. I'm not saying teams can't turn their seasons around because it does happen, but for the most part, you can tell where certain teams' seasons are kind of headed. And for the bottom 8 right now, it seems like it's pretty solidified as far as the Panthers and the Broncos. And the next team, and I'll give them a little bit of credit this past week, is the Giants. They competed. They almost beat the Bills. It came down to literally the final play to try and get in the end zone. Didn't happen. They had a controversial no call on a holding, and then played before that they actually had a pass interference called their way. So they just couldn't get it 2 times in a row. Maybe you call it twice. Maybe you don't. Maybe you stay out of it. I know people kind of disagree as far as thinking the ref should call that or the ref shouldn't call that. Whether you think refs should be a deciding factor in the game, like those final play scenarios or not. I guess people have their different thoughts on that. But Giants, you came close with no Daniel Jones. I guess that's a bit of a, maybe a moral victory. But at this point, it's kind of, it's not good. It's not good at all. And then the next team is the Bears. Now, the Bears, I do feel bad for because not that they were going to turn their season around, but to at least just try and improve, make it respectable. I think it was totally on the table, but now Fields goes down with a dislocated thumb, and I think he's out this week too. They're still in the bottom 4. They got a win at least, but it really sucks having Fields out now. Then once again with no movement is the Cardinals, same as last week. And, really, nothing to be too shocked about. The Cardinals have competed and even upset a really good team this year, but overall, they are about as bad as we thought record-wise. I think they play a bit better than what they look like on paper, but other than that, they're not a very good team, same as last week. And then next, finally, with some movement from last week, is the Patriots down 1 spot after losing to the Raiders. It's not all that surprising at this point. The Patriots are just not good. I think it's really as simple as that. They're just not good. Whether you just kind of lose out at this point and draft a quarterback or try and just get Mac Jones confident again, who knows? In my opinion, you move on from Mac Jones. But at the same time, if you do that, you have to bring in other weapons because you just don't have it. You're kind of like the Panthers. There's just not enough weapons for any quarterback to really get something going. And then next is the Raiders, who are up 1 spot. They kind of switched spots with the team they just beat, which is the Patriots. Garoppolo gets hurt. I think they described his injury as dodging a bullet, so I think it's nothing too serious compared to what it could have been. Once again, the Raiders are really just not that good, but I will say they are competitive enough to kind of stay in games and give themselves a chance, other than the Bills game, of course. But other than that, the Packers game they ended up actually winning, so they find themselves in competitive games fairly often against teams that are, maybe on the brink of, maybe more in their season. I think the Raiders are not quite a team that spoils big team seasons, but that do put themselves in a position to maybe upset them, if that makes sense. But overall, they're still just not that good. And then down 1 spot from last week and rounding out the bottom 8 is the Saints after losing to the Texans. Once again, the Saints, and I can say it's for every team at the bottom, but they're there for a reason. It's because they're just not that good, and I think that goes for the Saints too. I think they have a fairly easy schedule, and they started out whatever it was 2-0, 3-0. I can't remember what it was, but I think it starts getting kind of exposed when they play some better teams. Because they themselves are just also not that good. I think it's very easy to look at the NFC South and be like, oh, they're 3-3, but they're not very good. The division is horrible. I think it's surprising for the Buccaneers to be in the spot they are in, because I thought they'd be very, very bad. But overall, that entire division just really bad, and I don't think the Saints are too different. But a huge highlight is Chris Olave. I love Chris Olave. I think he's very, very good. And if you get the right quarterback in there, I think Olave can be really a top 10 receiver in the NFL. All right, then up another spot from last week is the Vikings. You beat the Bears. First game without Jefferson, you get the win. Not like it's a crazy opponent or anything. But this week, you do play the Chiefs. And I want to say Monday night, I think. They just played the Chiefs. What am I talking about? I think they played the 49ers on Monday night, which would be a very big game. But overall for the Vikings, I wouldn't say season is over. I think not having Jefferson is brutal, but I wouldn't say season over. I would still try and just play out the next few weeks. 49ers come off a bad loss. Maybe you catch them kind of down again and get a win over a team that might be pretty injured when this week rolls around. So you never know. But Vikings up one spot at number 24. And then next is the Titans, which are down 2 spots from last week after losing their London game to the Ravens. The Titans did get themselves back in that game, but overall it just really wasn't enough to actually win. Tannehill's now hurt. I think this hits like a similar injury to last season, what he had. So I'm not sure what that really means as far as the timetable. I'm not sure if they really know what that means. But overall, Titans, you got to get healthy because you're in a very, very winnable division. Very competitive. All the teams are pretty even in there. So hopefully having Tannehill out doesn't set the Titans back too much. League-wide, I don't think that they're one of the better teams, but I think that they do have a lot of potential. Like they beat the Chargers. The Chargers are a pretty good team. They beat them. They got slapped by the Browns and they beat the Bengals. And I think the Bengals are not as good as in years past, but still pretty good. So I think the Titans have potential, but you need your team to be healthy. So got to monitor that Ryan Tannehill situation. But otherwise, down 2 spots from last week. The next is the Buccaneers, who are down 1 spot from last week. And, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because it's pretty expected. They play the Lions. Lions were one of the better teams in the entire NFC. And, you lose by, 14 points, I think. So, it is what it is. You're not supposed to be, like, the best team in the league anyway. It's kind of an expected loss. Just kind of on to the next one at that point. And then up 1 spot from last week is the Rams. You beat the Cardinals. Once again, not one of the better teams, but still, you're hanging in there record-wise. You're not really showing off. You're not really falling behind, which is really, it's a fine spot to be this point in the year, especially when your expectations were very low going into this season. So, good on the Rams, honestly. So, we'll see where they go from there, but they're coming in at number 24, 23, 22, 21, 20, I think. So, yeah, there you go. Yeah, I can't do math. They're coming number 21. But anyway, next is the Steelers, who did not play last week. And I want to take this time to also say, because I can't remember if I missed one or not. I don't think I have. But 4 teams that are on a bye, just because they move up or down, that is basically because of other teams moving around. So I just want to be clear that if your favorite team was on a bye and I moved them down 3 spots, the following week whenever they play, it will be evened out. So just know that. I'm not like moving teams down just because they didn't play. It's kind of how the lists have to go. But once bye weeks are over and stuff, it'll all be evened out again. So just kind of have to go along for the ride. So Steelers, yes, they're down. No, it doesn't matter because they didn't play. They'll be back up or whatever. Just add for next week. And then down 4 spots is the Falcons. And I got to say, so what I've said really all offseason and into this season is for the Falcons, what was holding me back a lot from, saying that they're going to win the division, all this kind of stuff. Even though I did say that, but what was holding me back from being more confident in it was Desmond Ridder. And I've tried to be patient because at the end of the day, he is a young quarterback. He still is not super experienced, and he still is trying to put everything together. But I'm just not sold on him. And this past week was really the nail in the coffin for me right now. I need to see a lot more to be impressed with Ridder because he threw a really bad red zone interception. When if you throw that ball away, you kick it, you take your points. You do not turn the ball over there. So really brutal. I think they had 3 chances to tie the game, and they just couldn't do it. I'm not a fan of Ridder, specifically his inconsistency, because sometimes it's like, oh, he moved the ball fairly well. Other times they count on him to have to pass the ball, move the ball, and he just doesn't do it. So that's my kind of issue with the Falcons. They're down 4 spots from last week, and Ridder is definitely starting to scare me. I see a bit of a last year Jets situation with this Falcons team where their offense could be a lot better, but their quarterback is definitely holding them back a bit. And then once again, next is the Packers, who are down 2 spots. They're on their bye. It's what it is. They moved around on the next team. Next is the Commanders, who are up 3 spots from last week. Again, this is a team all offseason, all into this season that I have been very high on. Their offensive potential is really high, and I think Sam Howell can be a very good quarterback. So nice win over the Falcons, beating Desmond Ridder for the first time at home in his entire career, college and NFL. So obviously that's huge accomplishment. huge accomplishment and another streak ruined thanks to the Commanders. So good win for them, and that rounds out the bottom 16 for this week's power rankings. Let me know down below your guys' thoughts on that. And now into the top 16. Next is the Colts, who are down 2 spots from last week. I'm afraid the Colts are going to start kind of falling down this list because without Anthony Richardson, I'm a little worried what Gardner Minshew is going to bring to the table because he played pretty bad against the Jaguars. I got to say, he played pretty bad. So we will see where the Colts season goes from there because, again, it's a winnable division. It is really, really anyone's division at that point, but Minshew has to play better than that. That was not his best showing at all. And, every game counts in the NFL, so not great for the Colts. I still have them top 16 for right now, but they could very easily start falling off that. And then up 2 spots is their division rival, which is the Texans, who did get their win against the Saints. So a good win for them, and CJ Stroud kind of keeping that moving. I think they are now at 500, I believe. I think they're 3-3, 3-4, 4-3, something like that. I can't remember exactly what it is. I think they're just 3-3. But, that's very good for them. I'm really happy for the Texans. I did not think playoffs would be on the table, but it definitely is. So, got to keep that going. Nice win for them, up 2 spots. The next is the Seahawks, who are down 4 spots from last week. You go into Cincinnati, and you really don't play all that well. And I don't think either team necessarily did. But, Geno threw a turnover in the red zone. I don't remember if it was once or twice, but, that really adds up because it was a very close game that came out of the final possession. So, tough to see there. I think the Seahawks are still a good team. Not saying they dropped 4 spots just because of the Bengals loss. Other teams were also moving around, which can cause that. But Seahawks, you'd probably like to have that one back. That was a very winnable game for you guys. And next is the Chargers, who are down 1 spot. Some people might have wanted me to drop them down pretty far because Herbert did play bad, and I'm just going to be honest. Herbert, he played pretty bad, but we don't see that very often. The Chargers are still a good team, in my opinion, and they did lose to one of the better teams in the NFL. So I can't knock them too much for that. They could have won that. They're in position to go down there and get a game-winning score or game-tying score. Hurt throws a pick. It just kind of caps off his pretty underwhelming night, to be honest. He's very inconsistent, missed some big-time throws, but it happens to everybody. It is what it is. On to the next one. I think they play the Chiefs next, so that should be very interesting for the Chargers. And then up 7 spots from last week is the Browns. Now, here's the thing. I had to move them up just because I felt like I had them a little too low after last week, but then you get a big win over who was, in my opinion, the best team in the NFL as of last week, and you got to respect that too. So the Browns are up 7 spots. Really, really good defense. Cannot stress that enough. Great defense. And the Browns offense, the 49ers defense is pretty good. And the Browns offense with PJ Walker in there, getting in spots to take points, to get points. And, they did a good job of it. So can't ask for much more than that. I'm not sure if Watson's back next week or what happens, but big time win for the Browns, so good for them, and they're up to, I think, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, I think, but I maybe did math wrong again there. And, okay, so the next team is the Jets. They're up 2 spots from last week. The Jets I have hung around here. If you guys have seen past episodes of this series for, every week, then you already know this, but I've hung the Jets around this spot because I wasn't prepared to drop them super far once Rodgers went down. I dropped them, I think, down to like 20, because that's when I was like, okay, I have a very bad feeling about this. But then Zach Wilson played well against the Chiefs. So I was like, okay, I'll move him back up just in case. And the Jets, you beat the Broncos. Now you beat the Eagles, a very, very good team. So I'm going to hang the Jets around there because I think they're still very competitive. That defense is amazing. I can't even imagine what they'd be doing if Rodgers was healthy right now. So props to Zach Wilson, though. Even though he doesn't always play the best, I think he's got a bit better at really not turning the ball over. I might be mistaken, but I don't think he turned the ball over last game, and that was against the Eagles' defense. The Eagles' defense is pretty good, so good for Zach Wilson, putting his team in a spot to win, and they get the win. So big time win for the Jets there, and they're up 2 spots from last week. The next is the Bengals, who are up 1 spot from last week. I'm not blown away by their win by any means, but it is what you need to see if the Bengals to help turn the season around, because their division overall has been very underwhelming. A lot of people, including myself, thought it would be one of the more competitive divisions in the entire NFL. And while it is competitive, a lot of the teams in there really aren't, blowing everybody out of the water. The Browns' defense has been great. Offense has been a little shaky. The Steelers' offense has been very disappointing this year. The Bills' offense has been disappointing this year. I think, in my opinion, the Ravens' offense has. I don't know what they're technically ranked, but I thought there'd be a bit more explosiveness to it than what there is. Ravens are still a good team. But again, I feel like the expectations for the division just haven't really been met at this point. But Bengals up one spot, and they're somehow still in the running for first place in that division. And then next is the Ravens. Now, the Ravens did not move from last week, and that is really just because, yes, they won, but they beat the Titans. The strength of the win there wasn't a whole lot for me to kind of like leapfrog them over the other teams that are ahead of them. So still a good team. Just, it's just one of those wins where it's kind of, expected of them. And the next two teams are the Jaguars and the Lions. The reason I'm doing both teams at once is because neither team actually moved from last week. Because both teams, like the Ravens, all three in a row really, got wins over teams that were like expected. Like if you're going to be in this high on the list, you need to beat those teams. And they did. Got the job done. They're staying right there on the list. You could maybe make a case for leapfrogging the Lions up above like a team that have ahead of them, because the Lions have just been very good this year. I'm not going to do that yet, but once we get some bigger games in here later this year, that very well could happen, because the Lions, they really are a very good team. But as of right now, those three teams in a row, Ravens, Jags, and Lions, did not move from last week, but all good team wins. And then down one spot from last week is the Bills. The Bills, they did win, but you struggled against Tyrod Taylor and the Giants, which is not the best look. But still, a win is a win. You don't apologize for wins. So, well done, I guess. You want to win that by a bit more points than what you did. But at least you got the win. So, there you go for the Bills, down just one spot. The next is the Cowboys, who are up one spot from last week after their nice win against the Chargers. Dak played very well, in my opinion. I was really happy to see that for him and the Cowboys as a whole. So, nice team win. Up one spot from last week, and the Cowboys are still, one of the better teams in the NFL. And then this is where some really weird movement came in. Next is the Eagles, who are down 2 spots from last week after losing to the Jets. And here's the thing, because some people are like, oh, the Eagles are so fraudulent, you shouldn't have them up that high. Not just me, like on anyone that has like them this high on this list. So here's the thing. The Eagles' upcoming schedule is very, very tough. You can look it up if you want. They play some big-time teams. So if you're someone that thinks I should not have them that high, just wait a couple more weeks when they play those teams, and we will see for sure if they deserve to be that high or not. Because they're about to, we're all about to find out whether or not they deserve to be there. So for right now, they're there. If they start losing some of these really good teams coming up, they'll definitely be sliding down within the top 10 to maybe even 16 range, depending on how that kind of stretch of games goes. But as of right now, they are still there, but down 2 spots from last week. And then also down 2 spots from last week is the 49ers. You lose to the Browns. I could drop them much farther, but I haven't seen the 49ers consistently play bad to where I feel like it's justified. So not a great game by any means, especially because you have CMC and Debo hurt after it, which could really hurt you in the long run. So you want to get those guys healthy. Not the best game overall, but is what it is there. So they're down, I think, 2 spots as well. Wait, no, they were first. Now they're down 2 spots. Next is the Chiefs, who are up 1 spot from last week. Nothing crazy, just kind of their team is moving around, kind of push the Chiefs up 1. So still a very good team there. And then the Dolphins, who are up 3 spots from last week at first. It is not because of them being the Panthers, because again, that doesn't mean a whole lot. Just because of those teams moving down, and I feel like between the Chiefs and the Dolphins have been the stronger team this year overall. So that is what the power rankings are looking like this week. Let me know down below what your guys' thoughts are, what I got right, what I got wrong, what you would change, what you agree with, what your favorite team is, or where they are in here, all that kind of stuff. Thank you guys for watching. I do really appreciate it. Make sure you guys are subscribed to my channel for more videos like this. I do these every single week. Tomorrow is my week picks. I do both power rankings like this and week picks every week for NFL stuff. Also, other just random NFL videos. And we also do Madden videos where we do gameplays, pack openings, no money spent series, new content, and promo news, all that kind of stuff. So it's always football content on the channel one way or another. So thank you guys for watching. I do really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.